Oh, yeah, so cold. There's something I've struggled with in the past, and that's what's kind of held me back in building some of my cars. And that can be me talking myself out of it, where it's a good functioning working car. I can get a lot of laps out of it. There's some issues here and there, but it's not that big of a deal. Well, today I'm gonna force myself into the point of no return. And that's gonna force me to build this car. And I think I need that extra motivation. So I'm gonna pull out the engine trans and clean everything up, inspect some stuff, and then I'm going to cut off the core support and just kind of make an assessment of what I need to do to the chassis. So once you bring out an angle grinder and a Sawzall, it's kind of the point of no return. So that's what we're gonna do today. I'm gonna get moving as it's really cold and the shop's still warming up. I just turned on the heater, but the best way to get warmed up is to just go ahead and start working. First thing, disconnect your battery. Trust me. Start messing with this stuff, you're definitely gonna wanna have your battery disconnected before you go in there with a wrench and start arcing shit. One helpful thing is this like pig pad stuff. If you're removing an engine, just go get some, dude. It's worth it as you catch some of the drips and stuff and you don't want it all over your floor. I got 50 feet of it, so I don't make a mess. But first thing, remove all the fluids. I've already started removing the coolant, so got a head start on that. But I'm gonna have to disconnect these fans, pull the radiator out. Well, yeah, that thing was hardly even in there. Sweet, I don't even think I put a bolt on that. So, a little bit of fluid in there. Nice. Way to pay attention. While I'm keeping everything organized and taking that apart, I'll take my project apart and kind of store everything in bins in the way I take it apart. So I like to put this padding in the bottom, especially stuff from the engine bay, like the overflow tanks and stuff. If there's a little bit of residual in there, if it leaks out, that stuff will soak it up and it doesn't make it such a mess. So it's just a good idea to have that stuff on hand. One of the first things I like to do is get the radiator out of the way. It's just how I like to work because it gives me more access to stuff, makes it easier to work on. So after the bumper and all that stuff's removed, I'm gonna take anything apart, get the radiator out of the way so you can access stuff. So radiator and fans out, and then I'm gonna start draining fluids for everything else. And then we'll start unplugging wires and drive shaft and all that while the fluids are draining. Look at this. There's my radiator tie down. Stupid. It worked, but man, I can't believe I did all this stuff just to get by. All right, rad's free. You can see all this jumbled up, gross wiring that's just been soldered together and stuff, and some different connections for the whatever happened at the track, but all that stuff's got to be taken care of. You can see how close I am with the fans here. All this stuff is driving me nuts. There's multiple reasons that I want to fix everything, and I'll show you all the ugly stuff that I've done to this car, and I can't believe that it's made it this far. I'd like this not to spill. Yeah, so now you can see I have a lot more access to everything. And one of the things that's bugging me is this horrible core support. So I'll end up cutting this stuff off. After I drain the fluids, I'm probably gonna cut this off first just because it'll make it easier to pull the engine out. I know I wanna cut it off. I'm gonna get a rough estimate of how long it is. You can look up the dimensions online, so it's really not that bad. But I'm gonna measure it anyway, then cut off this front support so I can pull the motor straight out and I don't have to really battle going up and down. I know I'm gonna do it, so remove some of these wires and drain some fluids. It's not necessary to drain your engine oil, pulling an engine, but I'm going to just because I'm gonna pull this whole engine apart. So I'm gonna pull it out, inspect the oil, And I'm gonna do the engine, trans, and diff. They're all coming out, they're gonna be stored. So I'm gonna drain everything all at once. The oil looks super good, obviously. I just changed it before the event. And it only had one event on this oil, which meant it only had 2 laps before it shut off. Such a shame. Here's another thing I really disliked about this car, was the exhaust. I love the sound of it. When I made it, it sounded great. I put a resonator on it, very much enjoyed that. But where I had the downpipe come down, I had a big V-band clamp, and that got caught every time I tried to load it on the trailer. So it's super annoying. I definitely want to reorganize that in the future, tuck that up. It's just one of those things you learn, you know, live and learn. When I loaded on the trailer, it get caught every single time. Ended up being the lowest point in the car. Just made it really annoying to load in and out. And I didn't have a really good mount set up. All these are broken. There's zip ties. These crappy donut clamps, that thing broke. I put a worm gear clamp on it just to hold it at the track. Just a bunch of stuff that needs to go away. Sounds good. Everything else is shit. Sweet. Don't know how this is gonna be. Probably pretty bad. Looks fairly metallic. Smells terrible. Get it in the light, take a look at it. Looks pretty gross. I'll tell you one thing, this trans is getting replaced. That's one big thing on my list. Frame rails look damaged. Alright, diff. This needs a good wash. Cables still look good, handbrake's good. Gonna replace it anyway, but still looks nice. Fuel lines are in good shape. Alright, moving on. Crawling in my skin. Message for you new guys out there. Don't forget to lubricate your tools. Damn it. Come on, man. What a way to start the day. Slipped out of my hand. Right in there, baby. Beautiful. Let's get the shifter out of here. Yucky. Oh, bushings are in good shape. So that's nice. Nasty. All right, now that most of the work is done underneath the car, I can start disassembling stuff from the top. So I'll start taking apart the easy stuff, harness, O2 sensors. I gotta get this downpipe off the exhaust. I'll start taking off vacuum lines and then the throttle cable, things like that, and just attach everything from the motor slowly. Work my way around until it's ready to come out. So it's kind of the easy part. Such a strong clamp. So this downpipe I made, it served its purpose, but like I said, this flange here was catching every time I got it on the trailer. So I'm either gonna move it up the line or further down and tuck it up. So that was a fairly annoying bit. At this point, I'm kind of thanking my past self for getting this Haltech terminated harness because it made it super easy to take everything out of here. Everything's disconnected now. So the harness is completely off, out of the way. I took off the wastegate. The power steering lines are off and dripping right now. And the clutch is off and dripping right now. So just kind of letting that stuff drip its way out. And then I'm going to plug that up. The last thing I really need to do as far as the engine's concerned is disconnect the fuel lines. And unfortunately for me, I only got one lap at the last event I was at, so I have a full tank of fuel and all of my fuel jugs are full. The other problem is I don't have any way to block them off as they're a -6 line, -6, -8 line, and I don't have any plugs for that. So I was trying to think of a way to not make a huge mess and fill my garage full of fumes, because then I'm kind of done for the day. If I fill this full of fumes, I can't really open the doors as it's in the teens outside. It's very cold. So yeah, that's the last thing. So I might try and just crack up a little bit and get it in a bucket, and then I'll hoist the lines up, maybe put a glove around it for now and pull them out of the way so nothing drips out of it. And then all I gotta do is pull out the trans mount, yank the engine, and then we can start looking at everything. I wanna pull the trans off and take a look at the clutch. But before I do that, before I do the lines, I'm probably just gonna cut this stuff off so it makes it easier to come straight out. I know I don't want the core support, it's rickety. So I'm probably just gonna start and cut it off here, make it super simple, and then I know I want to cut this a little more flush here, but I want to think about it a little more than just cutting into it and, you know, hoping for the best. So I want to plan for it and cut my way back easily. But I'm pretty happy. Everything's worked out pretty well. So haven't really spilled a drop yet. Now I get to go to the fuel and figure out how to make a real mess. All right, there's a couple reasons I want to cut out the core support, and I want to do it right now because I'm about to pull out the motor. That's reason number one. I can easily get this out. I don't have to lift it too high. So I know I was going to take it off anyway because I'm going to reorganize where all the coolers are, where the radiator is, and it's real beat up. I cut it up for the bigger radiator. It got hit a few times. Everything I modified was just very temporary. And it's hung on this long, but it is rickety, it's crappy, and it needs to be redone. So I plan on doing a tube front anyway and reorganizing some of the stuff up here, making a better bolt-on piece for bash bars and things like that. Everything could be replaceable is kind of what I want. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start cutting this off to get everything out of the way. And my makeshift intercooler mount, you can just see it. I might even be able to pull it off. That's how crappy it is. So anyway, let's get cutting. No turning back. Ew. Clean up as you go. If you clean as you go, it's a lot easier to work. You're not tripping over stuff and dragging it everywhere. All right, one quick tip. I know I'm gonna change this. I know that I'm gonna cut more. I don't have to be so detailed on it. Just take a second and clean up your edges. Don't leave sharp metal after you've cut it, especially if you're gonna be working on the car, especially if you work in a shop with other people and they don't really know what they're getting into. Don't leave sharp edges everywhere. Clean them up. Grab a Scotch-Brite, grab a sanding disc, clean up the metal edges because getting cut sucks. One of the things I want to work on with this car as well is I will be in and out of here. I want to be able to maintenance it really quickly. And one of the things that I really took away from Formula Drift is if we're in a 5-minute and we're really rushing around, you're not really paying attention to what's going on. So if there are sharp metal edges, man, you can really make a difference because it'll cut you up, it'll cut up your teammates, and you don't want that. So I'll be looking around this chassis for things that I can cut off, smooth out, and try and make everything a little bit more accessible and not something that I'm going to be rubbing against, cutting my arms and other stuff. So just clean up. Get a Scotch-Brite, clean up everything you can. No swarf anywhere. You don't want that stuff when you're trying to work on a car. All right, now I got the front end kind of where I need it to be. I don't have much left to do. To get this out, all I got to do is undo the transmission mount and the engine mounts. But the one thing I do have left is the fuel lines. So unfortunately for me, I would love to actually purge the pump and get all the fuel out, as I probably will be taking out this fuel cell. But right now, I just want to get this motor out and I don't want anything to stop me. So I'm just gonna go for it. All right, let's see how this goes. Hopefully there's not a bunch of fuel pressure. Shouldn't be. Ethanol. So I've got the fingers off of these gloves. That's what I came up with. And that should help a bit to keep stuff out of the lines and keep the fuel in it. At least for while I pull this out and come up with a better plan. So this should work as a temporary solution until my plugs come in, I think tomorrow. So then I can plug everything up nicely, not have to worry about this junk. Smells like ethanol under here. Gross. Trans is free. Didn't feel like taking this camera off the stand and it doesn't fit under the car. I took a transmission mount off. You get it. Motor mounts are the last thing. I think the pressure of the motor is really holding it, so I don't even have to grab the wrench. Okay, one down. Yep. Wish I would have grabbed my impact, because this is pretty long. Bingo. All right, everything's undone. Let's pull this sucker out. If you want to know the quickest way to find out what you missed, just start pulling your motor and you'll find it real quick. The train's a little... Got to pull the bolts out. You know, you're by yourself. big ass motor. Alrighty. All right. That's the easy part. That's all done. I'm not sure if this plan works, but we're gonna try it. Maybe I should give this a little more. Yeah. Should be mobile. Hopefully. Oh. How sketchy is it? Fairly sketchy, but it works. All right, motor trans out. Now it's time to clean everything up. I want to definitely pull this apart and take a look at it, but I think first things first, I'm going to clean up all the chassis, get all the lines and everything else that I don't want off of it, and then I want to get the subframes and stuff off as well. But while it's a rollable moving chassis, I would like to be able to get it outside, give it a good wash, and then I'll start seeing what I want to cut off of it, and then I might end up media blasting the entire chassis. So, yeah, like I said, I don't have a full plan yet. I'm just forcing myself into this. So, it's going well. I'm pretty far along now. So, good progress today. I got the motor out, trans out, and cut off the core support. So, there's a couple things I needed to do. And now I need to reorganize my space a bit so I can get to working on the engine and the chassis separately. I don't want to be all in the same space and getting metal dust all over when I'm cutting on this thing. So I'm going to reorganize my space and then get this all cleaned up, order some metal, and then next time I'll be cutting into the chassis, cutting out the rear, and figuring out what I want to do for a radiator setup or wheel well setup. I'm not fully sure what I want to do. I'm going to start also planning the front end, how I want to build that. I do want to have some removable stuff for the coolers and for the bash bar, stuff like that. So I want everything to be easy to replicate and take off, as I'll have a spares package in case I crash. I can just unbolt it, bolt it back on, and go about my drift day. So I have some planning to do, and I'm very excited to get to that part. And I feel like I'm getting a lot closer to the planning and building, as I don't have a great plan yet, but I'm gonna get there. Once I get everything off the car and start cutting into it, then the plan starts to come in. So I'm happy with the progress, and I hope you guys keep watching, because this build is gonna get out of control really fast.